so let's get started. Little intro. Oh, yeah. Small print, small print, small print. This is just for internal use only. Blah, blah, blah. I am still Dave O'Leary. I'm a provisional field director here with PFA and appointed with several carriers. But the one that we love to play ball with is National Life Group. And the National Life Group IUL is the one that I'm going to be using today. Anyway, scan my codes. Y'all know how to get hold of me. Creating a trust fund baby. So again, let's talk more about the trust fund itself. When you get to the point where you've got millions and millions of dollars, you hire people to put the living trust, whether it's revocable or irrevocable. You hire people to put these things in place. I'm not about to try to put write a trust and put that together for myself, but getting a estate planning attorney, shoot, you can even go online and create a living trust these days. But depending on how large your estate is, you may not want to do a do-it-yourself version. You want to get a professional that's going to put that together for you. But the bottom line is to get from where you are now to where you have to actually be worrying about estate tax, and depending on where the exemption is going to be by the time you're at that point. Right now it's 40%, so if there's millions of dollars above and beyond the exemption, your heirs are going to end up paying estate tax or a death tax of 40% on those millions and millions of dollars. Well, let's create that problem. So let's take a look at it. Trust fund babies, taking the children. I'm going to use a 4-year-old as an example and see how we can grow that. But it can start with anybody. Just the younger they are, the easier it's going to be to develop that incredible wealth, over their lifetime. Generational wealth starts now. Be that one. I think Ed Milet talks about that.
Sorry, just we are not sharing that screen. So screen 2.
Technical hold. Please hold.
And we're not sharing audio because there's no audio in this one. So
I want you to be.
there you go. All right. Thank you, Dave.
Okay. So, yes, we're going to create that wealth that will necessitate a trust. I have a lot of clients that have life insurance policies. Life insurance beneficiaries in itself are protected. They don't necessarily have to be filtered through a trust, like a living trust. When people own real estate, they typically will need to have a living trust so that they can avoid probate when something happens. So typically living trusts, most of them out there are associated with owning real estate, moving the real estate into the living trust, avoiding probate when something happens. Because probate costs time and money, and it's just so ugly when you're allowing the government to decide who's going to get what, and it takes forever, and it's unnecessary fees. But a trust can also be a way to control your assets from beyond the grave. So if you've got a large net worth, you've got a lot of cash, even the cash coming from the life insurance policy, if the beneficiary is a living trust, I'll give you an example. You've got children that you don't necessarily think could handle suddenly receiving millions of dollars as if it's a lottery, because they may not be responsible. So having a living trust be the beneficiary, and then the trust itself can decide what, when, and how all the beneficiaries will actually receive the money, or the funds, or the real estate, or whatever else is in there. That's another topic in itself, but it's just a way for us to control the payout. Even if you're not here, even if you are here, and you're incapacitated, the living trust has all those mechanisms in there. But in order to create a trust fund baby, you always associate, you see these in the movies, trust fund babies or children or even adults. They're basically living off of some stipend or pension or annuity from a trust fund, and that's how they make their living. They run around and play polo, they go shopping, they just get in trouble because they don't have to worry about it. the trust fund is going to pay them. If you've ever seen that movie Arthur, it's kind of old, with Dudley Moore. That's a great movie. It's really funny. I should have picked a clip from that. That would have been. Anyway, go back and see the movie Arthur if you haven't. It's hysterical. And it's about a trust fund baby who's an adult who is completely incapable of taking care of himself. So I'm not saying that we're going to build, children that can't take care of themselves, but let's create a great big wealth. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk about some problems. Right? First of all, I love calculator.net. Jot that down because it has so many different calculators. If you go to to the financial calculators, you're going to find a plethora of tools that you can use there. And what I did was I just want to see what college is going to cost. Because right now we kind of know what college fees are, especially if you recently put children through college. It's not cheap, and depending on whether you're talking about a state school or a private school, it can be very expensive. So this is a calculator we can put in here, and I just basically said let's go 5 years from now. I was figuring little Susie that is at 12 years old now. The life insurance policies will start at 4, but we're already all the way to 12. 12-year-old Susie is probably going to be going to college in about 5 years or so. We put in here, we just use the drop downs as to what the average costs are for an in-state public or a private school, right? So in 5 years, taking into account for inflation, they're figuring it's going to be almost $29,000 a year for a state school. This is just the national average. Obviously, California is going to be more expensive. And then private schools, $60,000. So how are we going to pay for this? Because college costs, if you want to send your child to a private in 5 years, it's going to be like third of $1 billion. No, I mean $1 million, $332,000 is what we're looking at. How are you going to pay for that? How are you going to pay for that? Obviously, you want to put in for as many loans and grants as you can. You want to get tutors now so that they get good grades and they get scholarships, and the scholarships will pay for a lot of that. But what are we going to count on? All right, so let's move forward a little bit more. What if your child is younger? What if the child is 2, 3, 4 years old? So now I'm looking at 16 years down the road. And then again, I'm telling you this because I think a lot of the people on here are not clients or guests. They are agents with our company.
We have some guests as well.
Oh, do we? Great. Absolutely. So think about this, because a lot of times the guests will be on here. It's like you're going to go tell your spouse about it. Well, how are you going to take notes or think about this from the standpoint of how you're going to relay this information to somebody else? If you have a child that's going to be going to school in 16 years, and it's just I shouldn't say just, if they're going to a state college, the average cost is going to be now up to $271,000 total cost in 16 years. And if we're looking at private, $568,000 is what we're projecting, right? $568,000 for one child to go to a private school, whether it's Stanford or whatever. But even if it's a state school, $271,000. Yo, that's painful. Hopefully we'll be making more money in 16 years, but still inflation. We can't just plan for our 2-year-old based on today's dollars. We have to plan for 16, 18 years. Here's another problem, because we're talking about our trust fund babies, right? Taking care of them throughout the rest of their lives, not just for college, but let's talk about when they're getting older, when they get to be as old as Brad, for example. It's just way up there. So this is another great calculator. It's called Genworth, and they're known for estimates and projections on long-term care type of expenses. And you can see down here that they're looking at in-home care, home health aid, community assisted living, all the way to semi-private and private rooms. And what I did, I just took this calculator and ran the slider all the way to 50 years forward, right? So if you have a 10-year-old, they're 50 years, they'll be 60 years old, and they're approaching the point where they may have some long-term care issues. How are we going to pay for that? Because that's one of the primary ways that people go bankrupt in this country. So right now, you can see in the blue line, or the dark blue, right now, home health aid is about $7,000 a month. But in 50 years, they're projecting it's gonna be 30,000 a month. And if you need a private nursing room, private room, right now it's like 13,000, and this is California dollars. And in 50 years, you're looking at $58,000 per month. Per month. That's insane. But again, we have to plan for this. How are we going to plan for this? How are you going to plan that your child is going to be able to afford $58,000 a month if they need that, or anything on this chart? These are the problems we need to address. And if they're a trust fund baby with millions and millions of dollars, it's probably not going to be an issue. All right, here's one more thing I'd like to point out. This is just the rate of inflation. How far will your dollar go? And specifically, I'm talking about your income. So if somebody can live comfortably, I don't know how you do that in California, but if you could live on $100,000 a year right now, going forward 50 years, it's going to take $438,000 a year to basically have the same buying power that $100,000 has today. Right? So if you're comfortable with $100,000, and again, this is back to calculator.net, that same tool, it's fabulous. And you just look for the inflation calculator. And I just stuck in 100,000, maybe you want to live on $200,000 or $150,000. Stick it in there, go forward 50 years. I'm just using a conservative 3% inflation rate. And in 50 years, you're going to need to be making $438,000 to be living on the same standard as 100,000 today. Does that make sense? I think so. Yeah. All right. So these are the problems. It's going to be expensive in the future. It's going to be expensive. Okay. I'm going to shift a little bit and talk about little Susie. She is a real person. Matter of fact, this is a real illustration that I just got from a National Life Group agent like a couple days ago. And I actually blacked out Susie's real name. We're calling her little 4-year-old Susie. Oh, now that I think about it, is it with a Z or an S? It doesn't matter. And anyway, so this is a real policy. And this is somebody that started a New York life policy, basically a whole life policy, which is very, very popular out there for 4 years old. And when we look at the illustration, and for the guests, an illustration is basically projections of what the cash and the death benefit is going to look down the road. Right now, we ran an in-force illustration, which basically means it's a policy that's been in force for let's see here. It looks like it's been in force for about 6 years or so, because the premium pay period is 15 years on this. In other words, they're only going to pay on this for 15 years and then they quit paying on it. And it will continue on for the rest of their life unless they take too much money out of the policy. And we're right now, we are at this point, we're at year 9, and the child is 12 years old. So at the end of this year, she'll be 13. And this is how the numbers look. The premium that they're paying, that the mother is paying, is $2,200 a year, $2,205 per year, annual premiums. So they're paying $2,205 per year for 15 years, and then they quit paying. And this is what the numbers look like. If she's using this for a college fund, then this is how you can do it. There's a lot of different ways to pay for college, to pay for life. And one of the ways that we teach, which is one of the cash or tax-free income sources, is a cash value life insurance policy. In other words, you put a life insurance policy on yourself, on your children, whoever your insureds are, and you can put money into this thing and build up the cash value so that you not only have a death benefit, if something happens, but you also have this cash available. So the way this has been designed with the 2205, by the time we're looking at, 20 years of age, right? 20 years of age, they've got $36,000 built up in this policy. It's not bad. 2205 per year. And in 15, well, and only pay for 15 years. And then when the child is 20, $36,223. Now, I don't know what kind of college that's going to pay for. I guess community college. We didn't look at that projection. We were just looking at state universities and private universities. But if you've got an extra 30,000, then I guess you could pay for a community college education, get an associate degree. A lot of people have that. Nothing wrong with it. But I guess my point is, this is not growing nearly enough if you want your child to go through a 4-year university. Either you're not putting enough into it, or the return on this thing is not much. Not enough, I should say. And in fact, the dividends that they pay on this particular type of policy is averaging 4%, straight from the agent's mouth. All right. Not bad. A lot of people have this. Let's go forward. What happens? And again, they only paid on this for 15 years. And by the time that the child is 67 years old, and I'm using 67 because going by Social Security, that's the retirement age now, right? You know, obviously, if we build a trust fund, maybe they can retire a lot earlier, but not with this policy. So at 67, we now have $493,000 built up in this policy. That's assuming you never take any money out of it, and that's assuming it continues on that 4% rate as far as you know, the money that's put back in the dividends, 4% on the dividends, 493,000. That sounds like a lot of money. Sounds like a lot of money, but remember how much money you're going to need to earn every year in 50 years to basically live on $100,000. Today's $100,000. It was over 400,000, right? So that's not enough. That's like 1 year's of income. All right. So this is a New York Life whole life policy. And it's a great policy. It's very popular out there. But when you come across people that have a whole life policy from New York Life, just know that it's an expensive product. In other words, the cost of insurance is expensive, and the return on the investment's not that high. And let's see.
And living benefits.
Well, yeah, there's zero living benefits in this. Good point. Let's see how that compares if we funded one of our policies from National Life Group the exact same way. All right, so Living Life Defender is our proprietary policy. And now, oh yeah, see, little Susie, she's getting a little more cachet now. She's spelling it with a Z. The New York Life version was with an S because she's getting more money. She's got it. All right, so we're just going to move forward. This is our policy where, you know, we have so many benefits for people, you know, die too soon, live too long, or get sick somewhere in the middle. So let's look at it. Same funding, $22.05 per year, and we're only going to fund it for 15 years. Oh, and I didn't point this out. It was a $250,000 policy with New York Life. So we started off with a $250,000 policy with our Index Universal Life Defender. All right. Let's look at the numbers. This is the same illustration, basically going down to where she's 20 years old. And you can see that we funded it $22.05 for only 15 years, same. And at 20, the amount of money in here is $64,000. All right, well, you know, they go to a bougie community college with 64. Remember what the other one was? It was 36,000. So same money going in for the same amount of time and the same face value. Instead of 36,000, we're all the way up to 64,000 now. We're making money. We're ahead. And yes, living benefits are available. Full living benefits on our juvenile policies. Not bad. I think we can do better. Let's kick it up. Oh, I forgot the retirement age. If we go to 60, same policy, 22, we stopped funding it at 15, and now at 67, we're at $1.1 million. $1.135 million, over 1.1 million. What was the other policy with New York Life at the same age? 493. So, wow, same funding, same everything. At 67, if you don't pull any money out of it, Instead of 493, it's like 3 times, well, I don't know, 1.1, it's a lot more. We're getting closer to being able to have some benefits that will actually work for us.
So Dave, I have a private direct question. Somebody asked, is that $1 million able to be taken out even though only the $33,000 was put in?
Oh, great question. Yes, let me go back, get rid of this. 33,000 was put in, but what happens is that 33,000 is growing with interest based on whatever indexes that it's tied to, right? And this is only, it doesn't show it on here. The illustration is only giving us like 6.4% return on our investment. If we go back and look at the 20-year history on just the S&P 500 with our products, it's like pushing 12% average over 20 years. So we can't illustrate that much because we're required to be very conservative. So I would imagine these numbers could be even bigger. But to answer your question, yes, you only put in 33,000, and then the rule of 72, the power of compound interest, it continues to grow, and it continues to grow faster than the actual cost of insurance is growing. And you can see actually that, well, if we looked at all of the entire, all the columns, it continues to grow to the point where, yes, we're at 1.1 million now, and that's only from putting the original 33,000 in.
Follow-up question from the same person. Taking out that over $1 million, is that tax-free?
So it depends on how you take it out. And I'm not a CPA and I'm not a tax consultant. So ultimately you should consult one. But however, if you were to cancel this policy and take out the entire 1.1 million at that point, then you're probably looking at a taxable event above and beyond the original premium that you put in. Very similar to buying stocks. You know, if you buy stocks at $5 and you sell them at 10, you don't have to pay taxes on the 10. You're just paying on the difference, what you profit. However, there are ways that we can take money out of this that you will not have to pay taxes. In other words, a loan, right? So when you design this so that you take loans against it, so if you just had this and forgot about it, and then suddenly you dug this out and like, oh my God, I've got this policy with $1.1 million in it, and they transferred it to me, the ownership, I can do whatever I want on this thing. You literally could take $500,000 loan out of this thing, a $500,000 loan, and go buy a crazy, a Lamborghini and have a hell of a midlife crisis. And it would be all tax-free money that you take out. Now, yes, there's a loan against this, but you don't really have to pay it back because it's being covered by the cash value and the death benefit that's on this policy. If you try to take a loan out that was $2 million, well, they're not going to let you because there's not that much value in here, right? So we advise people based on what their strategies are. Again, for college or maybe for retirement planning, you can start taking money out of this policy at some rate so that you can take loans against it for the rest of your life and never have to pay taxes on that income. And we're going to show you, we're going to demonstrate that a little bit in a few minutes as well. So yes, you can pull money out of this without having to pay taxes if you do it correctly. That's why your agents are doing these annual reviews with you. And if your current agent's not doing an annual review with you, get another agent, whoever invited you here. That'd be a good person. All right. Does this make sense? Incredible numbers. And this is just compound interest working in your favor, as opposed to the compound interest on your credit cards where you go buy groceries at 18.9%. That's working against you. Pay. Don't do that. Make money work for you. And this is what we do with our company. This is what we do is we educate people and teach them how to make their money work for them, get a lot smarter.
And sorry, another question. Is there an option of keeping both the death benefit as well as the cash, not taking out, but keeping?
So again, it depends on how much you take out and how it's designed. But if you were to take out $1 million, and in this case, you probably could borrow $1 million against it. it will have an effect against your death benefit at that point. And again, so we could run an illustration, now or, 50 years down the road when you're ready to do this, we run an illustration and we figure out what that's going to do to affect you. So some people have the mindset that they want to spend everything they have. And when it's time for them to go home to the Lord, they're going to leave $2.50 in their accounts, and they have succeeded because they're not interested in leaving anything behind. And then there's people that are really interested in creating a legacy that they can leave behind to their heirs, their children, their favorite cat advocacy group, whatever the case may be.
So just to
a
clarify,
balance.
sorry about interrupting, just to clarify, question is, once you take some of, or the statement, once you take some of that money out and don't pay it back, is it deducted from the death benefit after death?
It's deducted from your surrender value. So it's basically it's deducted from your accumulated cash value, and it's going to affect your surrender value. So if we took a loan, and just using these round numbers, if we took a loan of 500,000 against this policy right here, our cash value would still be at 1.1, but our surrender value would drop down to 600,000 at that point. And yes, it's going to affect the death benefit. It's not really dollar for dollar, but we would have to, again, run the illustration to see how much the death benefit would be reduced if you took $500,000 out of this thing. Again, the original death benefit was only 250. So we're still ahead. All right. Let's kick it up a notch. This is only funding it the way the New York Life policy was. But realistically, that's not enough. Remember, we don't want to just go to community college. We want our children to go to universities. So instead of the $223,000 a year, let's do $6,000 a year. It's kind of like funding a Roth almost. So $500 premium per month or $6,000 a year. And let's see what happens. We're going to fund this, and I changed the rules a little bit. I'm going to not, because I'm not comparing to the New York Life. I want to fund this thing for 20 years. And again, you don't have to, you can still do 15 years, but money in, money out. So if I fund this thing for 20 years from the age of 4, you can see now by the time the child is in their college years, 19, 20, 21, 22, the funds over here are up to $150,000, 150 to 200, depending on when. There's a couple strategies. One is you can start taking money out the very year that they start college as a freshman. I would say let them take loans and get grants and scholarships and as much as they can, and let this continue to bake and grow. And then after they're out of college and they're ready to start working or move back home, whatever the case may be, 6 months after they get out of school, that's typically when you start paying back the loans. So depending on the type of loan, you could be having an interest-free loan and no payments for the whole 4 years or 6 years if they go to grad school. So wait until after all that's done, 6 months later, that's when we can pay off the loan. And meanwhile, it's grown from 159 to 211. Make some more money. Anyway, hints from Heloise. So you can see right off the bat, we've got more money than what we had before, like 3 times, 4 times as much. Let's go to the retirement age. Again, we only funded it for 20 years, only $500 a month. A month. And at 67, we're at 3.7 million. 3.7 million. I don't know how many people are as old as Brad, but to have, at that age, several $1 million in just one account that you can rely upon for your retirement. You can start pulling money again, borrowing money against this thing for your retirement. And yeah, if it's going to reduce your death benefit a little bit, remember we didn't start at 250 on this one. We started at a $500,000 death benefit with a $500 monthly payment, right? So the more you have, the more you're going to save so that you can create this kind of a situation. $3.74 million by the time they're ready to retire. That's enough to, supersize your McNuggets in your retirement age, your golden age. And you don't have to wait to 67. That's just a Social Security number. If you go back up, you start taking it out maybe when you're in your 50s, you've still got a couple of $1 million in this thing. Or if you have other means, other sources to get your income from, you can wait until, well, you don't have to take money out of this at all. I mean, this is going to $6 to $7 to $10 million by the time they're in their 80s. That's with a miserable $500 a month savings. You're taking money out of your left pocket, put it in the right pocket, and it's for the children. All right, let's go to the next example. Let's pick it up even more. We have something for any type of client, whether they can only afford the $2,200 a month, a year, or now this one is, I'm going to $1 million policy, $1 million policy on that 4-year-old. And I don't recommend always just automatically doing $1 million policy, but if it makes sense, if it's suitable, and you've got the money to fund this thing with, then why not? Now we're going to put $1,500 a month into this thing. $18,000, a little over $18,000 a year. And again, if somebody's making a couple $100,000 a year, $250,000 a year, you've got clients like that, putting $18,000 into a fund that's going to create the results I'm about to show you is a no-brainer. We also have living benefits. I use this slide. I kind of gave you more information on this particular page. This is actually the second page of our illustration. Anytime we run a policy for you, you always get this information. You just go to the second page and all of this wonderful information is here. Well, if they have a chronic illness in life, if they have critical illness, critical injury, the big three, cancer, stroke, cancer is heart disease and stroke, or about 20 other triggers, you know, that you might be diagnosed with that would allow you to pull money out of your death benefit to take care of your issues while you're still alive. In other words, no more GoFundMe account. Now we can take it out of our life insurance policy. We're the only company in the country that has an Alzheimer's rider. So if somebody's diagnosed with Alzheimer's, look at this, 1.5 million can be pulled out of this policy the way it's designed. 1.5 million just for being diagnosed for Alzheimer's. And you know, somebody, depending on whether they wander in the middle of the night, you may need money to, you know, put staffing in place or facilities. This is real money that saves people from going bankrupt. And these are lump sum checks. So if you got, for example, stage, you would have to look at the tables, but even if you got at this level, even if you got like stage 1, stage 2 cancer, on this designed policy, you'd be able to get a lump sum payment of $1 million tax-free. And you probably recover if it's stage 1, right? And you still have $1 million tax-free. All right, let's look at the numbers. We're putting, okay, we're putting $18,000, a little over $18,000 a year into this. This is not for, obviously it's for people that have a little more means. And by the time they're in their college years, now the fund is up to $500,000, $600,000. Now we can pay for a real college. Nah, the other ones are real colleges too, but this is Stanford money, you know, Harvard money, that kind of stuff, right? But you gotta let it bake. Don't start taking money out early. Just let it continue. And you know, if they're going to this kind of university, they're probably going to get their master's and maybe a PhD, and just let it keep baking. It goes up to 800, maybe 900,000, and then you can just pay off the whole thing. All right. This is medical school money. If we go into the next table, because med students have, you know, they're like in school until they're in their 30s. Yeah, there could be enough money here to pay off even that. $18,000 a year for 20 years and then no more. What happens when they're 67? Oh, you old. So again, retirement age, arbitrary, because this is not a retirement product. This is a life insurance product. You can start pulling money out of this when you're 40 if you want to. Well, obviously, even when you're college age. All right, so you don't have to wait until you're 59 and a half. It's not a retirement product. It's a life insurance policy with a death benefit. And if we did not take anything out and it grew this way, maybe more, maybe less, $12 million by the time they're 67. with a $14-15 million death benefit. Now we're starting to get into that generational wealth. We only put 18,000 a year for the first 20 years. I say only. And it's all relative, right? But still, this gives you the ability to talk to clients that have that kind of income. And this is going to be helping people in such a significant way, because now they've got 12, 15, $20 million in this account that they can start pulling money out tax-free. Tax-free. We can save people millions and millions of dollars in the retirement years with the strategies and the ways that we teach them. Do you need to understand every bit of this to help somebody? Absolutely not. Matter of fact, please don't. All we're doing is we're giving you the concepts and showing you some numbers so that you will be excited enough to at least share this with people. Is somebody downstairs? Oh, you need the card. Here we go.
Can you put James in? Okay,
All right. So we're in a building where after 6:30, everything gets shut down and you need a fob to get up the elevator again. So somebody has arrived. All right. So here's the last example we're going to give. How am I doing on time? Oh, I'm doing pretty good. The last example is for somebody that's really got money. This is your ultra high net worth type of individual. These are people that they're not worried about money. They will spend it if it makes sense. All right. And we're going to design this a little bit differently because the IRS only allows us to put so much money into these policies, especially for a child. There's limits, because ultimately this is still a life insurance policy. So if you got a $100,000 death benefit and wanted to put $1 million a year into it, they're going to say, no, that's not how it works. You need an investment fund, not a life insurance policy. So they do limit us on how much money we can fund these policies with. And it's usually related to the age, the cost of the insurance, a few other factors like that. So if we really want to put a lot more money into this next example, my last example, we need to design this so that the IRS will recognize that there's a much more bigger insurable need here. And they're going to allow us to shovel a lot more money into this thing, a lot more than $18,000 a year. So how are we going to do this? This is, again, another unique feature of our company and this particular product, our Living Life Defender. And it's our ability to insure little Susie at 4 years old and add a rider, in other words, a term rider for a parent. In this case, I'm using I actually designed it with a 40-year-old parent, right? So the 40-year-old parent, and this is only one, we could add both and supersize this even more, but just with a single parent as a rider added on to this policy for 4-year-old Susie, I'm doing $1 million for Susie and another $1 million add-on rider for the parent. And now the IRS is going to let us put a whole lot more money in here. Take a look. 99. Let's skip the page. No, I didn't. Oh, okay. Here it is. $8,200 a month, or basically $99,000 a year. So $99,000 a year, and I only did it for 15 years this time, right? And so basically, you're putting $99,000 for 15 years because you can, right? I mean, if you know that you can talk to ultra high net worth people about something this powerful, you don't have to explain it to them. Just tell them, you be excited and let them know that we have the Rich Man's Roth that can give them super size tax-free income. I'm calling this Rich Man's Roth. Again, it's still a life insurance policy, but sometimes it's been nicknamed the Rich Man's Roth. And in this case, again, keep in mind, it's a 4-year-old Susie, but now we've got the rider, the extra $1 million rider of her dad, which is 40 years old. Okay. He could be 35, he could be 45, If he was older, the cost of insurance would probably be more, and you'd be able to put more than $99,000 a year. The concepts are the same, even if you only have $20,000 a year to put into it, or $5,000 a year. Concepts are the same. We're just, there's no limit as to how far we can go. Well, there probably is. I shouldn't say that. It's pretty high limits. 15 years, $100,000 or $99,000 a year. We're funding it when we started when dad is 40. And we're gonna stop when 15 years down the road. And then I basically designed this to start taking out income. Income basically the next year when dad is 56 years old. Now, let me tell you what I'm doing with this thing. Oh, by the way, 15 years down the road, we've got over $2 million in this account already, cash value. And our $1 million, actually $2 million, but this $1 million, little Susie account is up to 5.6. I'm demonstrating this now as an income policy. In other words, it's the exact same policy. I'm just illustrating that we're going to take income out. Dad, let's call him, what's dad's name? Fred. Fred is the dad, and Fred owns the policy. At 4 years old, Susie can't own a policy. She's not 18. She's not, So dad still owns the policy. This is the bank of Fred. This money, Fred owns it. Susie is the insured. Fred is the payor. He's the one funding this thing. Fred is the owner. He's the one that controls the assets. So he's going to, of course, he's got lots of other assets. Fred is, he's got a good portfolio, but this is one part of it now. And now Fred can start taking, at the age of 56, he wants to retire, and he can start taking $100,000. He could take more, he could take less, but I just designed this to demonstrate that he could take $100,000 tax-free out of this policy for himself. For himself. Fred's not, well, Fred is in trouble, but sometimes, well, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. There's good reasons why you sometimes want to use your children or your grandchildren as the vehicle to build your own wealth in a policy like this. And obviously the big reason is the cost of insurance for a child is minimal. So the more money you shovel into this thing, the more the asset is going to grow based on whatever index you tie it to. And it's not going to be hampered by a large cost of insurance. It's just like if you went out and got mutual funds, you don't want to pay huge fees, for mutual funds. You want as small as possible. So little Susie is the small fee. But we're getting Susie protected as well. Remember the living benefits, Alzheimer's riders, all that everything. That's on Susie. Those are all designed for Susie. But Fred, Daddy-O, gets to take advantage of the cash that's in here. So what's going to happen? We're going to take $100,000 tax-free from the time that he's 56 years old until he's 85. $100,000 a year tax-free every year. 56 to 85, what is that? That's like
30 years.
30 years, bunch of years. He could take more if he wanted to, but I just stopped there. The death benefit, the cash value is still growing because obviously we could take more than 100,000. Even with our 100,000 coming out, the surrender value is still in the fives, 5 million something. But this is what I was talking about earlier. The cash value is at 12 million in the 12s. Now the surrender value is down in the fives. We're talking about millions, but still, there's a difference, and the difference is all that money he took out, 2.5 million, 3 million. He's taken out $3 million tax-free over those 30 years. So far, he only put it, well, so far, he only put in 1.487. He only put $1,487,000 in the first 15 years, and he never funded it with anything else. And now, Fred has taken out $3 million tax-free, and we still have a huge policy intact for little Susie, for her living benefits, for her family, for her death benefit, for everything. Let's keep going. This is going to continue to grow. And now we're getting down to where Susie wants to retire. Well, Fred passed at the age of 85. Maybe that's why he stopped taking the money. And the ownership, obviously, of this policy was either, typically it's going to be in that living trust. The ownership of this policy could easily be in the living trust. And now ownership is not passed to anybody else. It's still in the trust. It's part of that trust fund baby we're talking about. And this is one of the assets that's in that living trust. And we could say, well, when Susie goes over 60, Now we're gonna start paying her some money. 200,000. When she starts off at 60 years old. At the end, basically 61, she's already received 200,000. Look at these crazy death benefits, right? We're continuing on. Susie's at the age of 60 started taking money out, $200,000 a year for the rest of her life. The cash value, the surrender value, the death benefit continue to grow, which basically says we could be taking a lot more money out of it without lapsing this policy, still keeping it intact. Crazy money. Well, they put in $99,000 a year to begin with. You know what they say? If you want to make money, you gotta have money. No, if you got money, work it smart. They're putting 99,000 for 15 years, knowing that the power of compound interest, the power of the rule of 72 is going to work in their favor. So that now, let's go to the next page. Oh, look at down here. By the time Susie's 85, that's when Fred passed. But of course, Susie's healthier. She lives better. She's
younger.
technology's better. Medicine is better. She's not going to pass at 85. But even if she did, look at this $58 million death benefit. Do you think that's going to change the family tree? You know, I mean, going into this, maybe your family tree from a financial standpoint is more like a bamboo stick. It's just not a lot happening there, not a lot of foliage. But we can be the one that changes the trajectory of our family's wealth and create that generational wealth that they will never have to worry about anything again. Well, financially, at least. You know, heartbreak, love lost, sickness, sometimes you can't help that. But financially, they're going to be taken care of. Let's go to the next page. Susie's going to live to 103. Well, 102, somewhere in there. She's really got it going on. And she continues to pull that $200,000 tax-free out of this policy. And if she continues to pull it out until her 102nd birthday, they have now pulled out $11.4 million. Remember, they only put 1.4 in to begin with, that 99,000 for 15 years. They pulled out tax-free 1. What is the effective tax rate on $200,000 income?
Say about 60.
60%.
Well,
Well,
tax rate. 30%.
tax rate, yeah, blended tax rate. Let's just say 30%. I mean, they're probably maybe 25, even 20, let's say 25% because they're good at, you know, they're good at writing things off. We're saving $50,000 a year in taxes, times however many years that was. That's a lot of money we're saving these clients. So we're making big differences in their family. And with policies this big, now you're gonna make some pretty good commission too. And you should. You've done an amazing thing for this family who's going to live to 102, have pulled out 11.4 million tax-free, and oh my God, and still have a death benefit that's over $157 million. $157 million. That's like drop the mic. You have to put money in early. This really works because Susie's 4 years old. If Susie's 14, the numbers are going to be changing a little bit. If you don't put 99,000, you only put 9,000 in, the numbers are going to change. But it's the same concept. If you only put 9,000 in, you probably don't need the rider, right, to increase the total amount that we can shovel into this thing. But this is the power of what we have. And all we need to do is get out and educate people. We need to get out and let them know, oh my God, you know, if people are complaining about taxes, especially their future taxes or retire, they're complaining about taxes, they need our help. If they're not complaining, that means they don't make enough money. They need our help. One way or the other, they need our help.
Amen.
And it's all about education. We're pretty good on time too. Pull that off. Any questions?
Woo-hoo.
I'm sorry? Well, any questions?
Any
If
questions?
there's no more questions, we're done. If you're a guest, I don't know how many guests are online. This is powerful stuff. I'm sure you're like, man, bull. No way. There's no way. Yes, way. And this is something that's very unique to our company, National Life Group. It has been around for 176 years. They've been around since before the Civil War. It's a mutual company, which means it's owned by its policy owners. It's not owned by shareholders. So they can make smart decisions that are in the interest of their policy owners and their own employees. 176 years. They've been around. They actually have, we paid benefits to people that were on the Titanic and on the Hindenburg. It's just phenomenal. This company's been around through the major depression and all the huge recessions this year. I mean, this past 100 years. So they are very, very stable. If they paid out every death benefit right now, including all the annuities that they've got, you know, in force, they would still have billions and billions of dollars in reserves. That's how strong this company is. All right. So it's not Dave, Brad, or Jen. It's not our solvency, although, you know, we should be practicing what we preach, right? And we do. You know, I can pull out my app and show you several policies right now. But it's the company that you're contracting with, and we're just the agent, the facilitator with that. So if you're a guest here, believe that there's power in this company and power in the products that are unique to what we have. And whatever the scale of your ability to fund your future or your children's future, we could design it accordingly. All right.
You did a lot quicker than song last night. I was up till 12:30 Florida time, both highly appreciated. So there's a lot of thank yous.
Well, okay, I can't take, we did start an hour earlier too. Last night we started at 7:30 Pacific time. Tonight we started at 6:30, but I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Any other questions? Then it's Miller time. No. Obviously, I've got these saved. This is the PowerPoint. If you want to go back and review this, I am a certified trainer with the company. I think there's probably a couple more certified trainers here. If any of the trainers on the call want to reach out to me, feel free. Can I go back to?
Yes.
Ding, 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 ding. My contact information, feel free to reach out. But just know that if you're a guest of somebody else, please talk to that guest. And then, talk to the agent or whoever our business partner is that invited you here. Because the last thing I want to do is step on somebody's toes, but I want to make sure that I'm supporting the person that invited you as well as you to get this information in your hands. I don't mean the slide deck, but you'll get the information and get you up to speed. All right. All right, great. Thank you all again. You drive safe and, be careful turning off your Zoom. You don't want to get injured, get a callus. All righty. Next week, we're having our big convention. I don't know how many people are going. I can't even see who all's online. But one or two more last notes. Make sure that you get good sleep before going. We're all going to our national convention for the guests that are here. It's in Vegas from Sunday through Thursday. Get some sleep before you arrive, because there's going to be so much happening. Make sure that you bring a notepad and take lots of great notes, not just for yourself, but to turn around and teach other people that did not make it to that convention. Make sure that you get involved with any events or networking that's going on after the classes, after the actual conference, because that's where half of the value is. Meeting other people from across the country, learning, we're all in the same company, but everybody has their little nuances on how they work this business. Get to know these people. It's really, really going to be an amazing adventure for you. And it will just launch your business. September 1st through 5th. Tickets are still available. So even if you're a guest, we're going to compress so much information into so little time that anybody can still go right now if they haven't signed, if they haven't registered. All right. Vegas, baby.
First to the 10th?
First to the 5th.
Okay.
Yeah, 5th. Basically, this coming Sunday through Thursday. All right. And actually, if you can't get there till Tuesday, that's fine too. All righty. Signing off. You shut it down? Do I?
I'll shut it down.
Shut it down.